welcome to this yet another show by dynamicCIO, where we talk about technology, its evolution, the emerging landscape, and the various trends. And as usual, we are talking about how digital transformation is really transforming sectors and industries across the board, and don't who don't transform stand to lose a lot. So, friends, today I'm joined by a very dynamic technology leader, Manthan Trivedi, CEO, ManCorp Innovation Labs. So, just to give you some context, ManCorp Innovation Labs was founded by young and dynamic entrepreneurs Manthan Trivedi, Rathin Deshpande, and Vishnu Gite, who actually hail from various different global backgrounds. And the company's stated objective is to create really niche, very unique and targeted products that bring along exemplary, adding value to all the stakeholders who are involved in the company and its products. In fact, the organization envisions to be a global leader in co-working and semi-autonomous AI softwares. And the stated mission is to innovate digital mechanisms that save time while making digital workflow easier and exponentially faster than traditional physical workflow, so as to say. So, without much ado, let's start the conversation. Hi, Manthan, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Muqbil, for such an elaborate and a nice introduction. Thank you. I'm doing
Most
well.
welcome, most welcome. So, Manthan, while I was setting the context, I spoke about things such as digital transformation, which is really, transforming industries and sectors and whatnot. So, what is your take on the evolving technology landscape?
Well, my take is the same as any other stakeholder from this industry. The industry is evolving at a very fast pace. You develop an algorithm to fetch some information or language algorithm, and 2 months later or 3 months later, there's some new technology or some new models that have just come up, and that makes the whole work of the 3 months obsolete because it's just way more advanced. So this field is transforming as we speak, every minute, every second. There are a lot of people who are working in this industry now across the globe, and so it's a high velocity industry, as I would put it.
Wonderful. So, to bring some perspective, with respect to the present times, there is this joke going around in the technology industry, especially among CIO friends, from most of the leading industries and companies. So, the joke is that, the pandemic has, has accelerated digital transformation more than any CTO, CIO, or technology leader in the last 5 to 10 years. What are your views on that?
That wouldn't be wrong to say at all. I mean, to quote an example, there has been, because we work with the judiciary and we've been working with them since past couple of years. I can give you my experience that, every court, even before the pandemic, had an e-filing provision where you could actually digitally file your cases, and you don't have to go to the court in order to submit your paperwork. But it is only after the pandemic that everyone is doing that now, and no one is actually going and visiting the courts. So it has definitely given a huge boost to the digital economy, to people working in technology, because now you just governments and other public service institutions have to mandatorily operate digitally, have to adopt to new technologies like video conferencing and video hearings. So it is a tremendous boost, and this was anyways a natural transition that was expected to happen by many of the CTOs and CIOs and CEOs across the entire tech space. But the pandemic has definitely significantly propelled it in that direction, and decreased the time that we expected it would take to get there.
Right. So, Manthan, since you raised the question of the judiciary and the one sector in which you are very active, so coming to that point, one of your missions is to really rid the judiciary system of its thousands and millions of pending court cases and all of that through the digital route. Would you like to shed some more light on that?
Right. So we essentially we've worked with the Supreme Court of India's AI committee, and with them we've brainstormed a couple of ideas as to where the bottlenecks are in the justice dispensation system, that's justice delivery system, and we as tech experts we've been advising them as to how technology could facilitate in expediting certain areas, automating certain areas, and just enabling in certain areas. To give you a small example, very recently, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable Judge of the Supreme Court of India, a senior judge, he had mentioned that there is a huge problem of this digital deadlock because all of the judgments and orders that are being passed have a watermark at the back of the page, right? And that makes it very difficult to actually convert that document into a computer readable format and be able to search within the document. So if you had to even find that how many cases do I have which include such and such types, unless it is fed in the metadata, it would be impossible to fetch that information. Now we have brought about a technology that digitizes that at step one, so that no matter what the cases are, you can actually do an in-text search and find all your analytics from there. That is one. Second is that we've created sort of a digital infrastructure where the kind of work that a law researcher who works with the judge or a judge himself would conduct on a case, right? So like say reading of the file, marking some pages, bookmarking some pages, highlighting some information, underlining some information, maybe adding a post-it note and making some notes there, and drafting some documents of opinions or maybe briefs or questions to be prepared for the next hearing, and making notes while you're hearing. So these are all activities that are physically conducted in a traditional manner, but we have provided an ecosystem where all of these activities could be conducted digitally. That is step one. Once you start conducting all of these activities digitally, it tracks your digital footprint and discloses to the user, that is the honorable judges, that what their usage has been, where have they spent maximum amount of time, and what are the processes that are repetitive in nature. And as soon as you are able to identify that there is some process which is repetitive in nature and is consuming a substantial amount of time, at a click of a button, that judge can completely automate that process. So what happens is that when judge is preparing, on a daily basis, judge hears on an average 75 to 100 matters a day. So to prepare for 75 to 100 matters a day and to keep them at the back of your head, that what the facts and the issues and the points of laws are, it's a tedious, extremely tedious job, and to actually read through them. So we've developed a system which allows them to automate this process, that helps them auto-generate briefs, and also create their own workflow on the digital mechanism, and finally allow them to automate if they see any repetitive processes. And one of the examples of this was given during the live demonstration at the launch of Supace. So the demonstration was on a matter where basically a judge simply uploads a case and starts asking questions as to what is the matter about, what are the laws involved, what is the chronology in which the court proceedings happened, what was the instance at which police appeared, does the weapon match the wound, or were all of the documents submitted in the given time frame. So these are all the questions that are generally asked by a judge to a lawyer or to the law researcher who is assisting the judge, or the judge himself has to find out by reading through those pages. So now we've developed a system that can actually, in matter of seconds or minutes, can help you fetch and catalog this information for your readiness. And that is how we are working with the judiciary as far as so far.
So, Manthan, you have spoken elaborately about the role and the importance of autonomous, automating processes and stuff. Now, my question is, that you also spoke about the leveraging AI and all of that. So, would you like to shed some more light and how it can be really leveraged to help the judiciary, get rid of its huge
Yeah.
burden that is there?
Yes, so there are two ways to this, Muqbil. So one way, as I mentioned, is the way of process automation, right? Where you are automating individual processes, where in a sense you're creating your own digital avatar and sort of putting it on autopilot so that you spend less time in preparing for that matter. That is one. Second area is where we can actually automate the entire justice dispensation itself. Like say for example in motor accident claim cases, usually it is just a formula. There's a formula of for example, if there is dependence of the victim. Was there someone who was present at the crime scene, or was it a hit and when it was a hit and run case, or what was the income? Was he the sole earner? Was the victim the sole earner? And based on those different parameters, you can actually deduct what is the amount of compensation that is to be given to the family of the victim. Now, this is an area where actually the entire justice delivery could be automated, which is also low risk, and also is something that can be piloted and then could be extended to other areas of law as well, like negotiable instruments. So, negotiable instruments are cases where you have check bounces. So, they are also pretty straightforward, right? I mean, the check has bounced, and now you have to appear in the court, and where it's just a matter about what is the amount, is this a repeated activity, and so on and so forth. So these are some areas where you can actually truly automate the process completely, where the judicial discretion is not necessarily a mandate, or is not necessarily it's not a sensitive area of work, as I'd like to put it. So there are two ways to go about this. So one of the ways we've already actually begun. We have begun providing we have provided them a system which tracks the digital footprint and allows them to monitor repetitiveness of their activities and allows them to automate those processes at a click of a button. So what happens is that essentially what task would take you about 5 days to do now takes you not more than 2 to 3 hours, and that is how we are expediting the processes.
So Manthan, coming back to our discussion, now we see that you have elaborately spoken about AI, automation, all of that. Uh, would you like to shed some light on how AI and data analytics solutions from ManCorp is that the company is providing in order to help the judiciary system?
Yes, so as I said, we have used multiple machine learning algorithms in order to track user behavior, so that could be so that we can identify patterns and replicate that. That is one. Second, we've used advanced language models where we've trained the system to understand the legal vocabulary and to make sense of the legal context. We've also used machine learning in order to automate certain processes, as I told you, for briefing of matter, right? So there are some cases in which you have the information in a fixed place from where you can fetch the information. In some cases, it is not. So we've done basically a combination of training the system in a supervised and an unsupervised manner in order to leverage this feature for the judiciary.
Right, right. Coming to the last bit of this interview, Manthan, would you, how has the journey really been for your, for ManCorp? How it started, what all happened, and where do you see it, headed? What is your vision for the future? Basically, that.
All right. Okay. So ManCorp, as an idea, started back in 2015 when I was in the Harvard dorm room, and I wanted to use data in order to supplement decision making, right? And so at that point of time, I was basically a student at Harvard. I was studying theoretical sustainability, and we used to basically read a lot of academic papers and do literature reviews. And one of the statistics is that there are about 3,500 academic papers, scientific papers being published every hour,
My
and
God.
out of which 60% of those new published publications make your current best practices obsolete. So what happens is that what we assume is the best practice for COVID protection may just become obsolete with a new study that has come out last hour, right?
Right.
So I wanted to basically build a system that could help update and read through those languages. So that is how the idea of ManCorp began back in 2015. 2016, I came down to India. I dropped out of Harvard. I started studying because I've never lived in India. This is my first time living in India. I've started studying, traveling across the country, and started studying how work happens, how the economy works, how businesses operate, and how government operates. And there we came about, a solution that could cater to one industry sector. And so we were primarily targeting MSME sector at that point of time, because that is the biggest area. I mean, that has the biggest chunk in India, right? I mean, 80% of the companies would fall under MSME today, if we speak about it. So that was what we were doing. And thereafter, we started giving talks and seminars and lectures on, how to use and channelize data, and how companies can become self-reliant, irrespective of what new government policies come in place. Which is what has become the biggest hurdle for businesses, right? I mean, there was demonetization that hampered the way companies operated. Then there was GST, which again added to something else. Then there was RERA. So if a company has to be immune to what new laws are coming, they have to be more organized. And so our objective was to bring about systems that would help them organize and work together, leverage each other's skills and abilities. And that is how the company started. Fortunately or unfortunately, by a stroke of destiny, we saw that there was an expression of interest released by the High Court of Jharkhand in 2018, very soon after our incorporation of the company. And so we applied for a tender and were awarded the tender. And then we started understanding the depths and inner workings of the judiciary. And slowly, as we spent more time, we started understanding the relationship between law and justice. And so now, I think if you like to understand my vision, I can keep on going for hours and hours. But to just sum it up down to, uh, uh, I like to say that we are essentially trying to provide an ecosystem uh, for all stakeholders of law and justice. So when I say an ecosystem and all stakeholders, I just don't mean lawyers and judges and registry members and courts and tribunals, but I also mean litigants and companies and education and students, where they could also benefit from the same technology. So we would like to create an ecosystem which hasn't been done before this yet. And once this ecosystem is successful, then we can maybe replicate the same model in a different ecosystem, let's say healthcare for that matter. So this is sort of a pilot testing whether an ecosystem like this can be successful or not. And that will be determined in the next 5 years.
Wonderful. So, my best wishes to your endeavors, and I do agree. And there is this perception, that the judiciary has been, some kind of, somewhat of a laggard in terms of technology adoption, digitalization, and all of that. But with your initiatives, I'm sure that the judiciary sector will benefit a lot, and will become really efficient and much more productive than it used to be. Of course, if you have to clear all the backlogs that are there. It's been a great experience talking to you, Manthan, and I look forward to more such interactions. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Muqbil. It was my pleasure. Thank you. Have a good one.
Same here, same.